Hey people, CzarThwomp here, and welcome to episode 38 of the Great Attorney 2 Resolved. Last time, we investigated the Professor exhibit at the Waxwork Museum, and then we basically found out where Enoch Trevor's laboratory is, and we went there, and now we bust out a door, and we are in a room full of stuff that we will investigate. There's no denying it, is there? They're footprints.
Yes, it would appear so. And I simply can't imagine how they came to be on the ceiling.
Isn't there a Susato shoot-up or something? Like a Susato takedown, I mean?
I'm no wonder why, Mr. Naruto.
That would make her almost superhuman, I suppose. No. Susato, she is not Pearl. Now, Pearl, on the other hand, she could just jump up there, no problem. She would just, from straight to the ground, no ring start, no anything, just straight up, boom. She would break through the ceiling. Hot air balloon. That's a really lovely model. It looks just like a real flying balloon.
I think it's probably staying aloft on the same principle as a full-size balloon, using gas.
A green flying balloon. It does have the hallmarks of that amazing deception at the Great Exhibit, doesn't it? Could it be that the whole thing was planned here in this very workshop? No books. Okay, let's check this stuff out.
Almost every piece of furniture is upside down.
Even Mr. Sholm's suite isn't ever in this much of a mess.
You're in no position to comment on mess, Mr. Naruto. Clean your desk.
But I suppose it's not quite the same thing, is it? I mean, it's not messy in here per se. It's just that everything is literally upside down.
But why?
Mr. Sholmes, have you found something?
Ah, Mr. Naruto, yes, in point of fact, something rather fascinating. What do you make of this? It's a Looney Tunes bomb.
Let's see. I've never seen anything like it before. It looks like a bundle of thick cigars wrapped in a large bunch of wires. Ah! Mr. Susato, what's the matter?
Surely that's a time bomb, isn't it?
What did you say? A time bomb? Sorry, but what's a bomb? What's a time bomb exactly?
You're truly one of a kind, Mr. Naruto.
I won't take that as a compliment.
Ha! You don't know nothing, do you, Odo?
You haven't got a clue what it is either, have you, Gina?
I invite you to consult the dictionary later, Mr. Naruto.
But this particular specimen is no time bomb, though I confess it has a very similar appearance.
Oh, well, thank goodness. But then, what is it?
It's a lunchbox. I see. So that's it.
Goodness, Mr. Sholmes, have you seen to the heart of the matter?
There are times when I consider my lot most unfair, for I'm fated never to know how it feels to flounder as you do when a puzzle presents itself. But I have learned to accept the hardships that come with being a great detective, Miss Susato. Here we go. I feel a great deduction coming. Once again, I can draw two conclusions from the scene we see before us. The first is that the inverted nature of the furniture in this room is the work of Trevor himself.
Oh, but how could you?
And the second conclusion is that this small device on the floor there is, without question, completely genuine.
Please, Mr. Sholmes, you must explain everything.
It would be a pleasure. After all, it is a great detective's civic duty to teach Scotland Yard the finer points of the trade. I will kill you right now with this newspaper of fish and chips, Holmes. Well, Inspector Gregson seems to lie with the idea anyways.
Oh, you deflected the inspector's glare with such fortitude there, Mr. Sholmes. Well done.
You're too kind, my dear madame. I hereby dedicate this great deduction to you. Kindly stand just there, Miss Susato.
Oh, yes. I'd be delighted.
So, shall we begin? Once again, Sherlock shows his present his logic and reasoning spectacular. The Great Deduction. The game is afoot.
flipped furniture.
It's plain to see that this room is in a complete disarray. The bed, the tables, the chair, the lamp, and everything is upside down. Almost as if every item in the room had, until recently, been happily positioned on the ceiling, before falling straight down onto the floor. Every item in this room was on the ceiling.
Every item in the room was on the ceiling. Are you suggesting that?
Indeed, the key here is gravity! It would appear that technology has at last succeeded in freeing us from the great pull of the Earth. For all the gravity in this room was reversed and then suddenly restored to normal.
Goodness!
The inverted furniture clearly reveals the truth about what the part of gravity play in this whole business. I quite understand your skepticism, Mr. Susato. I too was incredulous at first. However, my conviction in my analysis was cemented when I observed this. An anti-gravity device almost identical to the one featured in a dream of mine only the other day, in fact. An opium-fueled nightmare.
But then why is there a clock on it?
A most relevant question indeed. That is a timing device that controls when the gravity direction will switch. There was clearly a requirement for the engineer to be able to restore normal gravity automatically. And the commission we heard earlier from the other side of the door was the moment the restoration occurred. Yes, the reason why everything in here is turned upside down is because of the anti-gravity device. So you see, we need look no further to explain the state in which we are in this room. The direction in which gravity acts here was reversed by Mr. Drebber, but before being restored to normal in an automatic fashion sometime later by the timer device. I have witnessed precisely the scene in a dream I once had when I fell out of bed. Because gravity was reversed. Missing engineer. Now, let's consider the next conundrum. What was our engineer's friend's aim? Indubitably, the greatest clue we have to explain his actions is above our heads.
Yes, how is it possible that there are footprints all the way up on the ceiling?
A question whose answer will lead us neatly to the truth, my dear madame. The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because of the nearby skylight. Of course, Trevor's aim was singular, to escape. However, there's but one way into this room, accepting the skylight, that is.
Ah!
By inverting the gravity in here, Mr. Trevor was able to fall conveniently to the ceiling and make his escape via the otherwise inaccessible skylight, leaving those footprints behind along the way.
But the ceiling there is very high, Mr. Sholmes. If the gravity reversal was sudden, wouldn't Mr. Trevor have fallen up to the ceiling rather violently?
Falling up is both scientifically and philosophically a rather interesting concept, I feel. But the man was concerned with nowhere to run, so escape to the skylight was his only option. You may recall I found this in the room earlier, which I believe offers a solution.
Oh, the rope.
To reach the intended destination, what better tool than this rope? By anchoring one end to the wall, the man was able to lower himself safely to the ceiling, which explains how Trevor was able to escape this room before our arrival. He reversed the pull of gravity and fled via the skylight. And personally, I should very much like to reverse the pull of gravity again now, just for fun. Escaped via the skylight. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this topsy-turvy puzzle. Holmes, you need to touch grass now. Okay, I'm sorry, go up to prison. I won't apologize to him, Brian. He does not need to touch grass. Holmes does. I mean, for God's sake, man, what was that theory just now?
She's completely spellbound. Mr. Sholmes, there's just one thing that troubles me.
I would expect nothing less. You're destined to be troubled by just one thing for the rest of your life.
The thing is such a thing actually possible? An anti-gravity device, I mean.
I would say that with man's current scientific knowledge at the turn of the 20th century, it's no more possible than an instantaneous kinesis.
But your old deduction hinges on it.
Ah, but my dear fellow, when you have eliminated the impossible, what remains must be the truth.
Yeah, I love how basically Sherlock's coming up with all the Ace Attorney catchphrases.
I have copyrighted all of the Ace Attorney catchphrases. Mia Fey has ripped me off. However improbable it may seem. It's a marvelous line, would you agree? One of my more endearing pearls of wisdom. I had Iris come with the exact phrasing. My original was clumsy.
Yes, I have a feeling I've read in something that Mr. Susato lent me once.
Actually, there is one other thing, Mr. Sholmes.
Ah, the spell's broken at last.
The rope you found on the floor, wasn't it?
Indeed it was, in lonely coils near the wall.
But if Mr. Drebber had used it to escape in the way you described, wouldn't it still be tied to the wall?
My mysteries inevitably unravel in the end, as I think you'll find 2 ropes. And as evidence of such, you need only look at the mystery we faced in this room, now skillfully unraveled.
That argument is as circular as the coils of rope.
I think perhaps we might need to give Mr. Sholmes the usual little helping hand. I'm sure with some minor corrections, the great detective's great deduction will lead us to the truth.
Yes, you're right. And we must do it quickly before Enoch Drebber gets too far away.
If you're ready, then let's resume. Sherlock Holmes, logic and reasoning spectacular.
Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes.
It's plain to see that this room is in complete disarray. The bed, the table, the chairs, the lamp, everything is upside down, including except the porno books. The porno books are perfectly fine. Almost as if every item in the room had until recently been happily positioned on the ceiling, before falling straight down onto the floor.
Every item in the room was on the ceiling. Are you suggesting that?
Indeed, the key here is gravity. It would appear that technology has at last succeeded in freeing us from the great pull of the earth. For the gravity in this room was reversed and then suddenly restored to normalcy.
Goodness!
The inverted furniture clearly reveals the truth about the part gravity played in this whole business.
To think gravity could have been reversed in this very room, I find the whole idea utterly enthralling.
Only Mr. Sholmes could conceive such a great explanation. But the man himself admitted it was scientifically impossible, so...
Yes, you're quite right. We must completely discount the idea at once.
Ooh, that's unusually merciless of you, Mr. Susato.
When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. The great detective himself said so, didn't he?
While refusing to part with his dreams of anti-gravity devices.
Yes, I suppose so.
Well, let's see if examining this topsy-turvy scene a little more closely reveals some proof that shows exactly what the gravity in this room was or wasn't doing. Upright face.
Take that!
The upright base clearly reveals the truth about the part gravity played this whole business.
Upon my words, Mr. Naruto, you've surpassed yourself by completely turning my argument on its head.
Trying to impress your assistant here, perhaps?
No one is trying to steal your spotlight here, Mr. Sholmes. Trust me.
As you rightly say, though it appears at first glance that all the furniture in this room is upside down. This unassuming slender vase is standing keenly to attention. And unlike the large safe, there's nothing affixing it to the floor.
And it's the exception that breaks the rule.
In short, much as it pains me, The gravity in this room was never inverted at all.
My deepest sympathies for your loss.
Oh, poor Mr. Sholmes.
But the show must go on, so let's continue with our deductions.
Almost lost my balance.
Now that we know this contrivance is not in fact an anti-gravity device, there remains but one other possibility.
You don't say.
Someone deliberately turned over every piece of furniture in here.
Which might sound obvious, but leaves one mystery very much unsolved. Namely, why would anyone choose to do that?
Quite, and naturally there's an explanation. Yes, the reason why everything in here has been turned upside down is because of an anti-gravity device.
He's absolutely determined that this device must have something to do with it, isn't he?
I'm afraid the lure of an exciting scientific explanation is too strong.
Well, there's no doubt that somebody did this. Somebody turned all this furniture over. So whoever it was must have had a reason.
I'm afraid nothing comes to mind at all, though.
Well, let's look around and see if an answer presents itself. Okay. Let's look around. Look, there's something ringing on the underside of this armchair.
Oh, yes, safe. 432582.
Safe? As in it's safe and secure?
As in secure lockable box, I think.
Admittedly, more likely.
Well, there is a large safe bolted to the floor on the other side of the room, so yes.
So you mean this number would let us open it?
I wonder why it's written here, though.
Take that!
Yes, the reason why everything here has been turned upside down is because of the safe combination.
Precisely, I believe, Mr. Naruto, that you had a very similar experience once, did you not?
Yes, last year, when I bought a lottery ticket and noticed the ticket number down on the inside cover of a book just in case.
That's it! For people are forgetful souls at heart, and always make a written note of important information.
Just keeping the ticket inside itself safe would be more sensible, I think.
And what pray happened next, Mr. Naruto?
I lost the lottery. When the day of the drawing came around, I'd forgotten which book I'd written the number in and had to turn my broom upside down to find it.
This wouldn't have happened, Mr. Naruto, if you would have cleaned your desk.
That's it for people who are forgetful souls at heart and always forget where they've noted things down.
Not if you always note things in the same place.
I actually won the second prize, you know. 2 shillings. But I couldn't remember which magazine I slipped the ticket into.
Thank you, Mr. Naruto, but I believe I've proven my point now. Which is that a very similar scenario is clearly unfolded in this room.
Finding himself requiring access to the safe, the occupant of this room needed the combination code. He remembered that he'd written it on the underside of a piece of furniture, but forgot which one.
Leading to a state in which we now find the room. Yes, Mr. Drebber overturned all the furniture in here, in a desperate hurry to locate the combination code that would unlock the safe.
Escape via skylight. Okay, good. My switch did not freeze.
Now let's consider the next conundrum. What was our engineer's friend's aim? Indubitably, the greatest clue we have to explain this action is above our heads.
Yes, how is it possible there are footprints all the way up on the ceiling?
A question whose answer will lead us neatly to the truth, my dear madame.
Sorry, I had some mucus.
The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is the skylight.
Well, if it's changing direction
in the direction of gravity can't explain it, then how did those footprints get there?
Yes, I feel as though that particular mystery has just become even harder to solve.
I can't think of any other way to explain it. Ooh, life was so much simpler in those Halicon days when gravity could be reversed.
It was minutes ago, and those Halicon days never existed in the first place.
Well, I suppose you must put our faith in Mr. Sholmes and observe the area in more detail.
Putting our faith in Mr. Sholmes is what gets us into these situations in the first place. Okay. This is a gas balloon, isn't it? It's tiny, but it does seem to be a real balloon.
Yes, I think you're right. I think it's the helium that's keeping it up.
A green gas balloon. Why does that seem to ring a bell with me?
You can see there are footprints on this balloon too. Look.
Oh yes, surely that's a clue, isn't it? Though what it tells us, I'm not sure.
Take that!
Being able to fly freely in the sky, that has been mankind's dream for centuries. And of course, the balloon is the invention that's made that dream come true. Mr. Trevor, clearly a man of dreams, used the balloon to ascend to the ceiling and plant his feet there on the roof.
I take no pleasure in delivering bad news, but the undeniable truth is, it's clearly too small.
What? I knew you were going to say that.
My dear fellow, then you are twice the fool. If people could fly in such small balloons, why would anyone ever manufacture larger ones? I despair of your lack of common sense at times, Mr. Naruto.
That really hurts, coming from you. Okay. Yes, they're close to the skylight. I was searching the footprints. Okay, I'm just gonna search around. I know it's basically that his footprints were on the balloon, then he lit the balloon. Aha, here it is, shoe. Let's investigate the shoe. It's hard to believe, but there's a shoe up there, look!
Oh yes, and there are more footprints on this little balloon too. Perhaps the shoe was thrown up there by accident and became lodged, you think?
If so, then judging from the number of footprints, it must have been thrown up several times. Why would anyone be throwing shoes up at the ceiling, though? Well, if there was a big spider up there, Ryunosuke.
Oh dear, that's behind me, I'm afraid.
Take that!
The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because of the nearby shoe.
And on close inspection, there are clearly footprints all over the balloon as well. In other words, the aim was never the skylight at all, but the balloon.
But for what purpose?
A green balloon. That seems somewhat familiar data.
Ah! It was a piece of a green balloon's envelope that Mr. Naru and Iris found at the scene.
And inside the green balloon that Master Gods claimed he saw above the stage when the incident occurred was the second birdcage, the crux of this whole instantaneous kinesis deception.
You mean to say,
If we assume the balloon in here is a model of the one used on the day, then there's a strong possibility something may be concealed inside it. Something Absconder was desperate to retrieve before making a hasty getaway.
But the balloon's out of reach.
Hence why he resorted to a projectile, namely the shoe. Ah! Most probably Trevor intended to tear a hole in the envelope by assailing it with a shoe. However, his efforts were thwarted when the shoe itself became a prisoner to those lofty heights.
oh dear, we desperately need to examine that balloon. If only there was some way we could see inside.
You may recall that I found this in the room earlier, which I believe offers a solution.
Oh, the rope!
Hurry to the intended destination. What better tool than this rope?
Mr. Sholmes has managed to bring the deduction back to the rope.
Alright, I have to admit that was clever. So we just throw the rope up to the balloon and then pull it down to the ground.
Which is much easier said than done, and could take us a very long time as well.
True. Perhaps we need a more surefire method. In fact, we already have one, of course, don't we? Crossbow.
Take that!
Yes, and let Ryunosuke keep the crossbow. Should we try and get into sedation? What better tool than this crossbow?
That was found at the scene, in fact.
And in all likelihood belongs to Mr. Drebber.
If the man had only brought it away within that day. He could have avoided losing a shoe at such a critical time as this. So, shall we? Your curiosity is deeply stirred, no doubt, my dear fellows. What is it that Enoch Trevor has hidden away inside this balloon? Ah! Well, what the? A waxwork? Indeed it is! A waxwork inside a metal mask! A mask that is shut tight and fastened with a strong and quite impenetrable lock. So we can't see the face inside. That means...
Just a moment. This is the head of a waxwork model. Does that mean... Oh, goodness!
I see you've joined the dots, Miss Susato. Excellent!
Of course, a headless waxwork model. The case of the abducted Madame Tuspel's model that you largely solved. It was only the head of the killer that was still missing.
Indeed it was! But I believe Madame Tuspels will now have to settle a sizable account with me. This, as you now surmise, is the head of the infamous professor.
Yes.
But why is it here?
This conclusively confirms my suspicions that the man responsible for stealing the professor from Madame Tuspels and returning it sans tête earlier today was other than Enoch Trevor.
This is incredible. Professor Hairbrain's case and the waxwork abduction they're inextricably linked by Enoch Trevor's workshop. The waxwork has been entered into the court record.
Well, it appears our logical pleasure cruise has come to an end, my dear fellows.
And almost fell back.
Yes, to speak with the architect of this adventure.
The architect? You mean Mr. Trevor?
As it seems quite impossible that he escaped via one of the skylights, obviously the man must still be here in the room.
What?
And his location should be abundantly clear. If you simply reflect on the journey we made together during the deduction.
Enoch Trevor is right here, somewhere in this room.
So, Mr. Naruto, will you do the honors?
Yes, of course. Mr. Trevor's hiding place must be the...
Take that!
safe. Before we gained access to this back room, we heard noises coming from in here.
Which tells us that the engineer was still in the building at that point in time.
He was in back searching for the combination to his safe.
And pressed for time, made no attempt to right the furniture that he overturned in the process. From which we can deduce that his search for the combination happened very recently indeed. In summary, Mr. Enoch Trevor is at this very moment inside the safe. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this topsy-turvy puzzle.
Inside the safe. Deduction complete.
So, Mr. Naruto, I think perhaps it's time we ended this game of hide and seek, don't you?
And I think now would be a good time to end this episode off. Anyways, I really appreciate that you stuck around to watch this episode. You're a great viewer, and I hope you come back for the next one. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you want. With that, I'll see you next time. Bye.